Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Overcaffeinated Dysfunctional. We're your hosts. I'm David.
I'm Josh.
Make sure to give us a follow on Spotify, YouTube, X, and TikTok. Click the link tree in the description for all the links for social media. Be sure to like and subscribe for all new episodes. Welcome back for episode 8. Josh, what are we talking about today?
Well, today we are talking about anti-American rhetoric inside the United States.
But before we start that conversation, we're going to our segment, In the Hot Seat. During this segment, we will answer one of our viewers' questions or react to a video. Each host and guest will have 60 seconds to answer the question and or give their reaction. Today's question comes from a viewer that was emailed to us. What do you think of Zohran Mamdani being elected mayor of New York? And do you think this is the direction of the Democrat Party? And Josh, you are now in the hot seat.
Well, for start off, I think it's a bad precedent for New York City. Mamdani's current policy is a socialist Democrat. Well, let's look at something here, and most people don't understand. Karl Marx actually talked about socialism and democracy and the close relation between the two. He called it that democracy is not far off of socialism, and that the American people would not digest the idea of being called a socialist. So you would feed it to the public as a form of democracy. But democracy ultimately leads to socialism, democratic socialism. And I do think it is the direction of the party. If you look at just one of his instances, he wants to raise the corporate tax rate in New York City from 7.25% to 11.5%. which is an increase of $12 million per year. And that's just on one item so they can have all their free stuff.
Well, Josh, well. Little mouthful there.
But yeah, I hate socialists and socialism and communism. I'm allergic to it. Now, with my allergies out of the way to the socialist program, you are now in the hot seat, David.
Well, thank you, Josh, for putting your allergies aside. So what do I think of Zohar Mamdani? I mean, this guy ran his campaign on getting back at Trump, or quote, as his website says, Trump-proofing New York City. We also talked about defunding the police at one point. Listen, I think the Democrat Party are going in this direction exactly. They want to defund the police. They have Trump dysphoria, and all they care about is getting Trump.
No, you're not wrong there, and you cut off a couple seconds there. So would that be considered a form of anti-American rhetoric, I guess, voting and rooting for a socialist? In my personal opinion, it is. When you look at anti-American, well, you have to look at what the country was founded on and the founding principles of the country. And the country was not founded on democracy. The country was founded on the principle of a republic constitution. So now, why, if you go back and look at it, why did the founders go for a republic constitution or a constitutional republic over a democracy? Because the same principle of a democracy as a socialism, the majority can rule over everything. And that's what our founders wanted to protect us as the American people against, was creating a basic plan and principle to block the majority from having rule over the minority. That's why our electoral college is set up the way it is. Because what is good for your farmers, and you see that in land maps, what is good for your farmers is not necessarily good for your city folk. And what might be good for the Northeast is not good for the Southeast, or what's good for the West is not good for the East. So you really have to dive deep into see where our founders' thought processes were, why we didn't start off that way. Plus, they had a front row seat to see all of it. You know, you saw the Chinese famine. You see Venezuela now. They're in a complete economic freefall. You look at the Russian Federation and their socialist, communist thought processes. It doesn't work out. And if you want a socialist society, you actually start to threaten the Constitution, because socialism means that any one of the 51% can change the Constitution without any other verbatim say. So if there's a majority of people in the country that don't want you to own bikes anymore, the bikes have to be owned by the government. That's it. That's done. That's how it's going to go. Same way with a business. If the majority of people are like, oh, yeah, no, people shouldn't own businesses, that's it. And a lot of times it turns into the government overstepping and overreaching and being like, okay, well, now that we're providing everything, we can dictate everything too. You see it perfectly with this government shutdown. What would happen if we were a socialist society? One, the government shutdown might not have happened. You can proclaim that one. But if at any point in time the government decided, meh, you know what, we're going to stop SNAP benefits, they could, versus where they can't in this society that we have today. So you really have to do a deep dive and look at the repercussions of going to a socialist society. And I think the Democrats, while they want to go to a socialist society, don't understand that just because we're America doesn't mean we can do socialism better. There's no such thing. You need to look at historical precepts at what happened, and that'll tell you what will happen again. History repeats itself. Just because we're the greatest nation on earth right now does not mean we can take a system that is proven not to work and make it work.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. And sorry, it was a dog barking. Have a dog, they say. It's fun, they say. All right. So yeah, I mean, no, I definitely do agree with you. And like I was saying before I got rudely interrupted by the barking, the Democrats are definitely going in that direction. They're going in that direction. Defunding the police, making America less safe, and making more Americans depend on the government. Mamdani, he wants to have city-owned grocery stores. You think that's going to be a good thing? We talk about limiting the power of government. Now we're going to give them full power. I mean, it's a bad look. It's a bad look, and I think it's starting in the wrong direction for a long road of bad history.
I mean, we've already seen what a bloated government does. Look at our government today. The government is the way it is because of Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson was the start of the progressive era. He fought against the Constitution and believed that the Constitution was a strap on his legs like a concrete block in the water. It restricted his power and ability. So he tried to change stuff. And if we give the power to the government, fully to the government, then it changes from, oh, well, we can't do that because we don't have the power to change the Constitution to they can just wipe out the Constitution altogether. Look at communist China. Look at communist Russia. Look at Venezuela. Communism, socialism, and democracy all run aligned with each other. And you know what it leads down to? The government being the central power in the country and doing whatever the frick they want whenever they want to. That is not what our founding fathers fought for. And that's why our founders didn't want, both the Federalists and Anti Federalists didn't want a democracy because a democracy allowed the majority to rule over the minority. And they knew it was a slippery road from there into socialism and communism.
Yeah, I'm all for lowering the prices for everyday American. I'm for it, but when you're giving more power to the government, it's a bad look. It's a bad history shows you that it's bad in all respects, and not just history here in America, but abroad as well. you know, and I think, somebody who runs their campaign on getting Trump, his whole premise of his campaign was getting Trump. And his statement when he won the election, he told Trump in his statement, turn up the volume. I just think we need to stop with the rhetoric and if you want to run on making New York City lives better, run on that, but don't run on turning up the volume of rhetoric and making America is violent already. You want to give free bus fares to New York City residents, fine, but how about making the New York City transportation as a whole more safer for your New Yorkers? I mean, every day someone's being stabbed, shot. I mean, New York City subway systems are a disgrace. It's a disaster. And instead of running on making New York City a better state, we're running on getting Trump and freezing all these rents. I mean, look at him. He makes over $140,000 a year living in government subsidized housing. I mean, there's New Yorkers that are paying almost double his rent. He's paying $2,300 a month. There's people who are paying double than that. So I mean, instead of being someone who's willing to make laws or policies to benefit yourself, how about you make policies that benefit the New Yorkers as a whole and not just yourself? And again, that's just my thought, but somebody who runs on getting their political opponent historically has been a disaster.
Well, something else I want to say this is wake up, New York City. Because here's what you need to think of. One, Ma'am Danny, or whatever his name is there, He can't impose corporate taxes. That is left to the state government. That is not, he can't impose or change the state tax. And Kathy Hochul, whether or not she'll hold up to it, I don't trust a word that comes out of that woman's mouth. She said she's not going to raise it. And the logic behind it is smart because once you start raising the corporate tax, they're all going to leave. What does that do? Well, guess what? The corporate and the individual tax on these Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies and your rich persons in New York form about 1/3 of New York State's budget. If those people leave, they're not just going to take a 1/3 hit. Guess where that hit's going to go? Oh, that's right. Your middle class workers are now going to have to try and make up for that. And it's not going to be economically or physical possible at all. You're going to tax everybody out of the state, and then the state's going to fall economically. You're going to see what's happening in California happen in New York.
Yeah.
California is in a $54 billion deficit, but yet they have the highest GDP of the entire country. How do you end up in a $54 billion deficit? Oh, well, that's right. You invoke all these programs that you tell people aren't going to cost money. And guess what? It costs money to invoke those programs. And it turns out it's just more money than what the state has to offer.
Yeah, no, it's true. And, he talks about raising the minimum wage to $30 an hour by 2030. And you also have in here Mr. Zoran Mamdani, you also have in here helping small businesses. You think raising the minimum wage to $30 an hour is going to help small businesses?
No, it's going to hurt small businesses.
These small businesses are already struggling to survive in New York City. I mean, what do you think the rent in a small space in New York City cost? Not even in Long Island. Let's say Queens. What do you think that cost a month?
At minimum, $3,000.
But let's raise the minimum wage to $30. Listen, I understand we have to be. We need to make New York City, New Yorkers' lives better. But we're gonna make all these small businesses close down. What? So the government can take control?
Well, so here's something that people don't know and understand about running a business. One, now you have to pay this person $30 an hour. They pay income tax like we all do, but they also have to pay tax on your tax. So they pay the equivalent in tax of your income tax. So they're getting like triple taxed while you're getting taxed once. And not only that, they're going to fire people because they can't afford them. You can't just, and if they don't, they're going to raise the cost of the good they're selling to make up for the difference. It isn't, oh, we're going to pay you more and keep our stuff at the same rate. No, they still have to maintain their margin to stay alive. I've had arguments with people, oh, no, they only charge what it costs. No, the business would fail if you charged what it costs because you're not charging overhead. If it costs you $30 to make a 50-gallon pot of pasta, you're not going to go out and charge $2 per plate. You're going to charge $4 per plate.
Yeah, no, I agree. And let's think about the basic though. Why are people voting for him?
Because they want free stuff.
Why?
They want to rely on the government.
Free. When you say free buses, free childcare, free this, free that, people aren't voting for you because of your thoughts and what you back. They want the free stuff. New York City, is difficult to live in New York City, and incentivizing free stuff, that's just paved your way to the office right there. You know what I mean? All you got to do is get out of the car now. So
yeah, I think it's also partly, we've gotten away from this. What happened to the American grit? People don't want to work no more. Why? We need to go back to that sense of pride and accomplishment that you get from a hard day's work and then seeing that paycheck. People don't want to work for what they want anymore. They just want to sit around at the house and collect money off the government.
Yeah, we're turning into a welfare country.
We are. We're a welfare state. We're administrative, we're a welfare state, and we're the military industrial complex. This is not what our founders thought of. Our founders thought of welfare and government subsidies, but it was very, very basic. Very basic. Like they'd give you housing, food, and then you had to prove, hey, I'm working this many hours and I'm doing this to get better.
Yeah, but we should be.
It is.
We should be saying, oh, you've had a fall in life and you need help. Okay, well, the government, we have a program to help you. But what we're not going to do is to provide for you for the rest of your life. Here we are. We have this program. We're going to put you in this program. We're going to get you a job. We're going to help you get back up on your feet. We're going to support you temporarily. Key word is temporarily. We'll support you temporarily, but you got to get your ass back to work.
Mm-hmm.
You can't rely, and the biggest problem in America is that these people that are collecting, and again, I'm not against people collecting, but collect if you need it. You're taking away from people who actually need it. And the people who are on these programs for life, and they've been on these programs for life, they're living better than the everyday working class American. You know, I mean, they're most of it, I mean, and I'm sure a lot of them are working under the table, cash jobs, so they're double dipping there. But most Americans that don't collect, that actually have a paying job and actually pay for their health insurance, are barely making it and barely making it, and they make too much to get assistance, and it's sad. And then here you got, an assembly member, our mayor-elect, living in subsidized housing that could go to somebody else who actually needs it. And he makes well above the poverty line.
Which makes me question, how did he get it? That's what
Well,
we also need to beg the question. If he's making so much money, how did he all of a sudden get government subsidies?
a good question.
Because he should not have been eligible in the first place. That's the real question we need to beg too, is how are you getting government subsidies when you don't need it? I think there needs to be an across the board audit across America and just go, huh, we didn't know you were there, but hey, by the way, we're taking away your subsidies because you obviously don't need it.
According to a asset report, it said that he earned $142,000 last year. You're telling, and I know New York's expensive, but you're telling me that's the poverty line. I
There's
highly
no
doubt
way.
that. I highly
Yeah.
doubt that. Highly doubt
Because
that.
not everybody in New York City is making $140,000 and they're surviving. It might not be a great lifestyle, but I mean, that's what New Yorkers have voted for over the years. Look at New York's sales tax rate. Look at New York's tax rate in general. They voted for this stuff and they're getting what they're voting for.
But why are they voting that way? Because they want people to rely on the government. They want
Well,
you to,
that's what the Democrats want, yes.
yeah,
But it's propaganda.
and
It's Democrat propaganda. We can do this for you and then never deliver. And then in 2 years or in 4 years or in 6 years, they come back and say, hey, you guys matter. It's the political game.
But you know what the problem with the Democrats is, Josh, is they want to say, here's food stamps, here's housing, here's utility assistance. And the second you don't agree with them, they shut it all off. And that's what they want, control. They want control, so when you go against what they want, they can take it away and everyone suffers. If they had it their way, the Democrat Party isn't what the Democrat Party used to be. They definitely are not. They want control, so when things don't go their way, they're able to destroy people's lives. Look what they're doing with the government shutdown. We're still in a government shutdown today.
I mean, to be fair, the Democrat Party of old was not much better than the Democrat Party of today either. What we have to remind people of, too, who was the Jim Crow era? Who supported Jim Crow?
Yeah.
The Democrats.
Yeah.
Who were the Ku Klux Klan? Well, that's right, the Democrats.
Right.
How was the Republican Party formed again? Well, that's right, to free the slaves.
And a lot of people forget that. A lot of people forget that, and again, if you don't know the history on a lot of these things, we urge you to, look up the history on this stuff, because it would open your eyes. It opens your eyes to understand where people are coming from, and it's just sad. And now in today's world, we have the anti-American wave happening, and I'm sure, the rhetoric being spewed by the Democrats aren't helping either. The anti-American wave in America is a term that is used in political and social commentary to describe a decline in patriotism and a rise in various forms of domestic dissent and protest, as well as movements critical to U.S. policies, particularly concerning immigration and federal actions. Now, this isn't a Trump problem. This is a government as a whole problem. Even under the Biden administration, the Obama administration, there's been a rise in the anti-American wave. A Wall Street Journal report noted that only 38% of Americans consider patriotism very important. And that was a significant drop, because in 1998, 60% of Americans considered patriotism very important. People these days are not happy to say, I'm from America. I'm American. Why is that? Why aren't they?
Well, we're divided as a country, and two, people think we need to trash the name of the American. But let's go back. Where did we really see the seed of this anti-American wave sown? This seed was sown in the beginnings of the progressive era. Who started the progressive era? Who really kicked it into gear? Well, guess what? That was one of the worst presidents in history, in my opinion, Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson, quote, or in his view, said modern government should be guided by administrative agency experts with specialized knowledge beyond the ken of ordinary Americans, and that these experts shouldn't be unduly constrained by ordinary notions of democratic rule or constitutional constraints. Let's break that down. Basically, what he just said is we should have quote unquote policy experts and admin experts who know better than the Constitution and shouldn't be constrained by the likes of constitutional law. Well, that sounds familiar. What also did Woodrow Wilson and his acolytes say? To really understand the purpose of the Declaration of Independence, you must ignore the preface. Well, what's in the preface? The preface is all about for the pursuit of peace, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So he wanted you to ignore that to read the grievances of the king, and he was using that as this is why these documents were made, and that's why they're not able to handle what we have today. And that's why we have to alter it. And this is why socialism is such a threat to our constitutional republic. And same with democracy. People think democracy, we're a democracy. We're not. We're a constitutional republic. I don't know how many times I have to say it, but I'll say it one more time for the people in the back row. We are not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic. Because in a democracy, if 51% of the people vote that companies should be ran by the government, that company is no longer yours. In a constitutional republic, it doesn't matter. That company is yours and it's constitutionally protected. So he wanted to get rid of the Constitution so that he could do whatever he wanted. They believed that the president should have powers inside the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary branches. And that's what we see today. So it's a destruction of the Constitution to move in this anti American way. And I call democracy and socialism and communism an anti American rhetoric because it goes against all the values and precepts that our founders put in place for this country. And then you look at another one. What shows us that the Democrat Party is starting to form like an anti American party or the pro socialism party? You put a pro Palestine flag over the United States flag and everybody cries out cheering. Get that other piece of cloth off the one that's hard fought and won by our American military members. They fought for this constitutional republic because they believed in it. Don't put another nation's flag over our own.
Yeah, no, I definitely do agree with you there. And you're seeing that a lot more lately too, and don't you think though, main reason, one of the biggest reasons that we're seeing a decline in pride in America is because of the division in this country, the political division, not just the division, but the political division. And we go back to what is causing that division. The people that are elected to support, to represent us. When you have Bernie Sanders and AOC going on national television calling Trump a Nazi, what do you think is going to happen? People are going to remember what happened in history, what caused that to happen, and they're going to react. They're going to react. You think the assassination of Charlie Kirk wasn't politically motivated? You really think that wasn't because of what people were saying online about him? Come on. Open your eyes, people. The people in office want you to be divided. Why? Because they can make money off of it.
Well, not only that, a divided nation only serves their purpose because people get more riled up during their propaganda sprees. And it goes both ways. The right is guilty of this, and this is why I'm a registered Republican, but that's because they align more with the beliefs of my real party. My real party, I'm a constitutionalist through and through, and I know I'll get called a political terrorist for that. I don't care. I align with the Constitutionalist Party because they believe what's in the Constitution should be law. And the Democrats don't align with that at all. So both parties do it. Both parties spill this rhetoric to show their side is better in this way, this light. So, and this is why we were warned against a two-party system. Why do we think we know better than the founders that shown they were wise beyond their ages? They created this system based off of what they saw in the Roman Republic. Roman Republic was a true republic. So they took some of that and put it into our system because they knew some of it worked. We got where we are today because our founders were well wise beyond their years. We need to go back to start listening to their words again. And this is where I say American history needs to be taught in schools once again. We need to go over the Federalist Papers, the Anti-Federalist Papers. We need to read the Constitution in classes. And I believe doing that will give people the true knowledge of what this country's basis was of, and then give them a way forward on how to vote. Now, you can make up your own decision there. I don't care which party you align with. All I care about is you are thinking about the decisions that they are trying to put forth. And one of these ways I consider it un-American is thinking for yourself. Stop letting these politicians think for you. Now, you're not going to agree with them 100%. And if you do, then you're just being disingenuous to what you really and truly believe. Because I don't know anyone who wholeheartedly believes a politician and votes with the politician on every single matter. Even my favorite politician, I have disagreements with, but it's about the one that shows the most policies that you agree with that you need to vote for. We need to stop this vote basis of, well, she's a woman, so I voted for her. That's all. You voted for her because she's a woman. Yeah. Yeah. That's not how you that's not how we should be electing people, and that's un-American because you're letting the politicians think for you. The whole purpose of this government we have is that we the people govern the state. We the
Yes.
people must think and be of one mind. You
Yeah.
can't say, "Oh, well, I'm just going to let the politician do it." No, we're supposed to watch over them. We're supposed to be like hawks. And if they're not voting the way they should be voting or putting policies in the way they should be, we need to get rid of them.
Yeah, no, I agree, and you tend to see more patriotism and more pro-American in the older generations, right? So if you look at the factors, they say that younger Americans are consistently less likely to express strong national pride than older generations because of the frequent institutional failures like endless wars, mounting student debt, the COVID-19 pandemic. If you don't think this stuff has consequences, it definitely does. It definitely does.
Well, then here's the solution. Don't become unpatriotic. Allow it to embolden your patriotic belief. Stop voting in the same people. If you disagree with them, stop voting them in.
Right, and part of being patriotic, is holding your leaders accountable, striving for our country to become better and do better, rather than sitting there hoping that the government runs automatically and having no pride at all. The decline in patriotism, it it hurts us on the international level too, because other countries see that we're falling apart and they try to exploit us, right? And it weakens our foreign policy. It gives our allies doubt. It emboldens our adversaries because they're, like I said, they're trying to find the weakest links in our country where they can exploit us. And ultimately it gives us a definitely huge decline in global confidence. People are losing confidence in America because we're falling apart. You think other countries, like China and Russia, you don't think they're happy when they see, people in the streets protesting the US government? You don't think that has consequences internationally? It definitely does. It definitely does.
Oh, yeah. No, there's no question that it does. It affects us all around 100% as a whole.
I just think American as a whole, we need to come back and we need to find that patriotism. We need to find that American pride that we used to have. And I'm sure that we have it. We definitely have it in there somewhere, but why aren't we displaying it? Our country today is too divided, and it's definitely not a good thing. So Josh, what do you think we can do to get our country back to where we were before, prior to the big split in differences and the lack of American pride?
Well, so here's 34% of Republicans, or sorry, Republicans are 34% more likely to be patriotic than Democrats. And they even go on further to say that 23% of Republicans are strongly patriotic, 34% are patriotic, and 22% are more capable of being patriotic. So in total, if you look at the numbers, it's 79%. So the Republican Party as a whole is 79% of the party is patriotic versus 10% and 9%. So that is what, 32, 42, 51%. Why is there such a gap? Why are Republicans or people that register to be a Republican 34% more likely to be patriotic than Democrats. Shouldn't both parties be the same? Shouldn't there maybe be a 1 or 2% difference? And we see it in the South, in your farmlands. They are obviously more patriotic than places like New York City, Boston, Portland, Oregon, Los Angeles, California. We don't even have to look at the numbers. You can just look at the different regions of the United States and see that the South and these other places are more patriotic. Why
Well,
do
I
we
think
think that is?
well, I think part of that is because we grow up the younger generation has grown up as the victim in every situation, right? The younger generation has grown up as the victim. So in these, in these more redder states, right? The red states, they're mostly made up by blue collar workers, right? People who are working with their hands. And growing up, these children are taught you need to work to to pay for your life, right? You have to pay for your life. But when you get to blue states where that are ran by Democrats, the same age frame of children are being the victim. They're growing up in poverty. Why? Because they are the victim. They don't know how to get out of poverty.
Yeah,
Why?
but
Because
your southern states still have the poverty line too.
no, I agree with you, but what I'm saying is in in a Democrats ran state versus a Republican ran state. So if you look at Texas, right? Texas, what do you have going on in Texas? People are more motivated, more patriotic. Why? Because the American dream. What is the American dream? The American dream to provide for yourself and have the best life possible, right? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, no, and I mean,
And then when you get to blue ran states, the Democrat ran states, you find more people living off the government. You find more people using these programs. And the lack of wanting to support your family and the lack of wanting to do better and the lack of wanting to get yourself out of poverty goes down significantly.
yeah, you see a significant increase of, oh, I'm a victim of this. I'm a victim of the white
Right.
man.
Right.
I'm a
So
victim of government policy
right.
versus, down south here, it's you're a victim of what you've made.
Right.
They
No, I
hold you
agree.
personally accountable instead of group accountability. It's, well, you're in that situation because you made such and such decision. Grow up, fight through it, and get yourself into a better spot. So I think a lot of it is personal accountability. There's a lack of personal accountability in these blue states, in my opinion.
No, that's what I'm trying to say though, right? There's a lack of responsibility and there's a lack there are more people saying, I am in poverty, I can't support myself because I am the victim. And
Yeah.
it is not just a today generation problem. This is a generational curse. Generational curse. And again, it's not everybody in Democrat states, and there's people in Republican states that do the same thing. But what I'm saying is the majority of the people in Democrat ran states are living off the government. They're victim blaming, and it's not just a skin color thing. It's a my family had it bad. My family had generationally have not had opportunity. I will never have opportunity. Why? Because I never had my family never had that opportunity.
Well, see, and that's the thing. People need to change that attitude because you didn't have that opportunity or your family didn't have that opportunity doesn't mean you can't make that come to fruition for yourself. There are plenty of people you see it in football players, you see it in athletes across the board. You see it in some of your higher positions now that these people they didn't grow up in the best life circumstances. Some of these people they grew up, in a single family home with 7 siblings to split 3 bedrooms or 2 bedrooms or 1 bedroom if they were lucky, and now they're out here, a pro athlete. That is a it's an attitude. It's the power. I'm gonna reference a book here. Angela Duckworth goes through a great example. She was looking at and studied the difference between 2 groups inside of West Point. Why were these 2 groups so different? Well, she looked at the bronze, so the people that were big and tough, and then they looked at the brains, so the people that had IQs through the roof. And she was trying to figure out why people with IQs through the roof did so much better than the people that were big and strong, especially during workouts. And it's the power of grit and perseverance. We need to bring back the grit and the perseverance. Yeah, I'm in a tough spot right now, but bite your teeth, get through it. You can get through the other side. You just got to be willing to do the work.
Yeah. No, and I agree with you. And I'll share a little personal story here too. I grew up in the ghetto. We didn't have anything. We lived off, we were on the systems. We got, welfare. We got, financial assistance. But the difference between me and the majority is I knew that the life I live as a child, I didn't want for myself in the future. I knew for myself that when I have a family, I need to provide for my family. Now, today, as we sit here today, we're starting a brand, right? We're starting an online brand, right? And I live above the poverty line now. I have a good career. I provide for myself. I'm married. I have a wife. I would never have what I have today by saying, I'm never going to have anything. My family's generational curse. We're cursed for our whole family line's cursed. I'm going to go down to the welfare office and sign up tomorrow. Instead, I was going to school, high school, full time, working 2 part-time jobs, knowing that I had to get out where I was before. And I'm not blaming my parents. That's not what I'm doing here because they did the best they can with the rocks they had and with the foundation they had. But enough's enough. Stop blaming America because you can't get ahead in life. This is the only country in the world where everybody, no matter your skin, your age, your hair color, your the kind of car you drive, everybody in America, no matter if you're bald like Josh or you have hair like me, everybody in America, we all have the same opportunity as each other. And that's what makes America so great. And that's why I
Mhm.
don't understand why the lack of patriotism and the lack of anti-American the anti-American movement, people forget that we have it better in this country than any other country in the world. In this country, you could say what you want and not be persecuted. In this country, as a woman, you can dress in any way, shape, or form you desire. In this country, you are allowed to carry weapons. You're allowed to keep and bear arms. In this country, you could say whatever you want. And I know I already said that, but that's an important one. You have the right to do whatever you want. You have the right to go wherever you want. You have the right to decide what career path you want to take or what career path you don't want to take. But we need to stop relying on government assistance and saying, I can't get ahead in life because my family never could. Therefore, I will never be somebody.
Yes, and I came from a good home financially speaking. I never wanted for nothing. But here's a great example, and you know it. I moved. I moved at 23, 22 years old to a complete other state. Nothing. Had nothing. Moved with my a few personal items, and that was it.
Yeah, yeah, it's true.
And you and I talk all the time, and look at what I built with some grit and perseverance. I mean, I'm sure you remember the hours I was working when I first moved down here.
Yeah, you were working 80-hour weeks plus some. It was hard to get, but that's the thing, Josh. Right? That's the thing. You came from a good family. You came from a financially well family. They didn't start you off. They didn't hand you $100,000 and say, "Here, go move out of the state, move south. Here's money. We're gonna help you. We're gonna help you start your life off down there." No, that's not what happened. You went down there and you busted your ass.
Yeah, my family didn't help me none, and actually they were questioning why I was doing it. And they weren't hard fought about it, but they were very selective on how they said it because it wasn't like, oh, yeah, we're going to support you in every way we can. They were very skeptical about me doing it.
Yeah, and that's the
And
thing.
that's that driving me that I have of they were partly like, "Oh, you may not be successful." And I was like, "I'm going to show you that I can be
Yeah,
anywhere I go."
yeah, 100%.
But you
And
gotta put in the hard work, sweat, blood, and tears
I
to do it.
agree. I agree. And this is what I'm trying to say, Josh. And give me a second to break this down. You come from a family, right? Your parents were married. Your parents lived together. You came up in a household with mom and dad, siblings, a good household. With you never had to worry about what you're eating tomorrow. Is that fair to say?
Well, yeah, no, we never had to worry about nothing.
And then I come from a family, and again, I love my family to death. I wouldn't change any way I grew up. Why? Because it shaped me to the person I am today. But what I'm trying to say is, I grew up. My parents weren't together, so we were bouncing. We were with my dad during the week, bouncing to my mom's house on the weekend. My dad didn't have a fair shake at life. My mom didn't have a fair shake at life. There's been a lot of situations that I'm not going to get into that turn things the way they did. We lived off the system. There was a point in life where we didn't know what we were going to eat day to day. We were going to food banks. There was time where we had, the Department of Children and Families involved a lot. But at the end of the day, the common factors between me and Josh are Josh moved to a completely different state. He became the person he is today, financially, morally. I moved across the state from my family. I'm on the complete other side of the state. 26 years old today. And guess what? We are both living above the poverty line. Why? Because we knew that life wasn't going to be handed to us. We busted our ass to get where we are today. And why? Because America has the opportunity for everybody. The opportunity for, no matter if you come from a good household where you're financially stable, or you come from a household where you had to worry about what you're going to eat the next day.
And
At
not
the end,
even financially. We talk about financially as the primary driver, but there are other things. People come from abusive households, and do the same thing, even with the trauma that they might have from the abusive household. It's that power, perseverance, and grit. If you lay down and say, well, I'm 42 and my dad or my mom was abusive to me. That's why I am where I am today. Okay, now you're just making excuses. That only works for you when you're 18, 19, maybe 20. At a certain point, if that's all you're going to do, you're playing the victim. All you're saying to anybody is, I'm a baby. I can't get over what happened 20 years ago. So that's why I'm here. If that's the case, if you are that developed into trauma, seek help, but also start motivating yourself to do better. That should be a motivation for you. That should be a driver. I never want to be like that. So here's what I'm going to do. Set goals for yourself. And I'm not saying set a goal that's 10 miles ahead of you. We have to look at this in snippets. Set a goal. Okay. I'm going to do 5 minutes of personal reflection each day for a month. Or I'm going to, in our case, I'm going to read the Bible every morning for 10 minutes. Doesn't matter which section, every day for a month. And then I'm going to up it. Set attainable goals for yourself and then move forward. And it's the same way with political situations. Find the party you identify with, find the politicians that you want, and set the goals for these politicians. If they don't make it, vote them out. This is how we become more patriotic. When you start developing and ingraining and buying into the American system, and you get to see where you come from. We're the only country in this world that allows you to come from one bad area and go to outstanding circumstances.
Yeah.
That's how you become more patriotic. Buy into the system, put that hard work and grit. And I guarantee you, where you end up, you will be more thankful for, you will be more prideful about, because you did it with your own blood, sweat, and tears. Nothing's ever going to be easy, and nothing's ever handed to you. And people need to get rid of this notion that life is fair.
Yeah, and everyone has their own battles, and I understand that. But at the end of the day, we need to come back as a country, as a whole, and stop allowing politicians to divide us. Stop allowing politicians to make us victim blame each other and say, you got where you were, Josh, because you came from a good home, and I will be nobody, and I'm living off the government because I came from a bad home. It's America. Everybody has the same opportunity, no matter which background you come from, no matter which generational curse runs in the family. This isn't cancer. This isn't a cancer. This generational curse has a lot to do with personal motivation. If we instill the American dream, if everyone thought like they used to, my goal in life is to achieve the American dream, and we put patriotism back into the country, you'd see a lot more people succeeding. But instead, the Democrat Party wants us to live off the government.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I'm getting a little worked up here because this is this is the basics here, but this is the reality of where we live today and what life is today. You think your great-great-great-grandfather sat at home waiting for the government to mail a check? No. Working in coal mines, working on farms, doing some hard shit work.
I mean, go back to 1910. You can even go back further than that. 1810, 1890, 1860, 1850, 1777. What were kids doing? Kids were going to work to help support the family.
Yeah, I mean, even in today's world, you have in families where they live on farms, you have kids that are, I see it all the time online. There's like a 8-year-old little boy out on a track, driving a tractor around his family farm, farming. And then you come into the cities, the big cities like New York City. You can go to California. You can go to Chicago. What are kids doing? What are they doing? They're sitting in front of a TV. They're sitting in front of an iPad. They're playing video games. When was the last time, Josh, you walked outside the door, walked down the street, and you've seen kids playing outside?
Oh, it's been a hot minute. It's been a hot minute.
Why?
Because we
because
allow them to sit inside and play video games.
this is another problem. This is another problem in the world because when they get to be the age where now I've graduated high school, what comes next? You have no motivational skills. You have no motor skills to be able to succeed in the workforce. There's people I know that, played video games their whole life and can't even tie their shoe. 18 years old, don't even know how to tie his shoe, or you give him a shovel, he has no motor skills to be able to, they have no motor skills to be able to dig a hole. And then you ask him, hey, what do you want to do with your life? Oh, I want to do this, 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 or this. How are you going to do that with no skills? The skills that you learn as a child. When I was a kid, you were outside until the streetlights came on. I know that's an old thing, but the situation of how I grew up and what surrounded that forced us outside. And you played with neighborhood kids. In my neighborhood, there was like 30 kids every day out on the street playing manhunt, anything. We were just not in the house. And you don't see that in today's world. You go through these city neighborhoods and it's like a ghost town. There's no kids anywhere.
Well, I mean, that one's partly due, especially in cities. Look at the conditions of some of them.
And that is true too. Crime rates have gone up significantly. Why? People can't afford things, so they resort to crime. They resort to robbing people. They resort to stabbing people, And you're looking at this now with the government shutdown. I mean, we're in, what are we in, day 40 or something like that now? Whatever it may be. I mean, let's say the 8th, so you're looking at
day 39 of the shutdown.
39 days of the shutdown. Yeah, they funded food stamps, SNAP program, but before that, there was people that were getting that assistance that weren't sure if they were going to get it, threatening to rob people coming out of grocery stores.
Yeah, and you saw videos of people in their cars like, oh, the American people need to fund my food stamps, And if you don't send me money in this video, you're not a true American.
Get out there and get a motherfucking job.
Yeah.
Get out. I'm sorry for the cursing,
because all that
but
tells me
Jesus
is
fucking Christ.
all that tells me is you're just sitting there collecting a check and claiming for some reason you can't do something, which is absolutely wrong.
And another thing too, Josh, is like under the big beautiful bill, Trump was gonna he is requiring if you're able-bodied between the ages of 18 and 65, you have to work 20 hours a month. People are losing their shit over this. They're losing their shit. Why? If I work 20 hours a month, they're going to cut down my assistance. You do not need the assistance. You're able-bodied. You're able to work. Stop being lazy. Stop being lazy. You think North Korea is handing out checks every month to their citizens? Think twice about that.
There's a famine going on. They're barely handing out food.
Do you think China's handing out monthly checks to people to live off their tax? I don't know if they do, but I doubt they are.
Look at
I
Russia.
highly doubt it.
What is Russia doing right now for their public? The Russian ruble is in the toilet.
It's insane. We need to stop acting like third world countries. We are not a third world country. We are the best country in America. Everyone has the same opportunity as one another. No matter your skin color, no matter your age, I don't care if you're bald like Josh or you have hair like me. I don't care if you have a beard like Josh and not a beard like me. There's a job for everybody. Even if you're overweight, there's still a job for you.
And here's the thing. What do you think would happen if every able-bodied today went to work?
The economy would go through the roof.
It would skyrocket. And what does that do? Oh, holy shiz. Guess what? The cost of living just went down. You're actually going to have a harder time finding a job because all these places won't be looking no more because every position is filled, which is a good thing to have, which means companies can expand.
Yeah, it's true.
There isn't a lack of jobs. There's a lack of willpower in this country. And there's not a lack of jobs. There's a lack of grit. There's a lack of pride. The Bible talks about pride as being bad, but there is a healthy version of pride too. You don't have to be like, I did it all on my own, because I'm not that person. I didn't do it on my own. I had a bunch of blessings from the good Lord upstairs. My whole life's been a blessing. But you can have some sort of proud standing of, this is where I was, this is where I got. And you can say that for yourself if you don't believe in Christ. You can say, oh, yeah, I got myself here. Fine. I don't necessarily agree with that mentality, but that's not for me to agree or disagree with. But find that source of pride for yourself. Find that source of outlet and outcome. You're going to get way more from a job and cash flow than you are government assistance. Get off the couch. Do something. Make your life worth living. Because otherwise, you're just a bystander in a world. You're just living out your days.
Yeah. No, I agree. And, life isn't promised. Tomorrow is never promised. You go to bed tonight, you roll over, you give your wife or husband a hug and a kiss goodnight. You roll back over. If you open your eyes the next morning, that is a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow is never promised. You can walk outside the door right now and get struck by lightning. You don't know when your time is. So take advantage of the time you have here on Earth and do something with yourself. Make your life the best life possible. And it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. We all go through, our own problems and we all have our trials and tribulations. But like Josh said, you need to resort back to your faith. Resort back to get Christ and ask him to guide you through the struggle, right? To get you through that. And I think the outcome outweighs all the trials and tribulations.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just my opinion.
Yeah, to get where you're going, you have to start from where you are. And if you have, and I'm sure everybody has a dream to do something, but you have to fight for that dream because rarely is anything in this life easy or given to you. And one of the ways you can do that to help yourself is pour into the country what you're getting out of the country. Be patriotic, stand in the values of what this great nation was built on. This, if our founders and the people in the First Continental Army just went, nah, I don't feel like getting up off the couch today and fighting the redcoats, we wouldn't be where we are. It took all of them to form this country, and it's going to take all of us to put into this country to keep this country going. And what does that include? That one includes knowledge. Never stop learning because knowledge is changing. Information is always changing. New information comes up. Knowledge is power. And if there was one thing I was ever taught, there is one thing that nobody ever can take away from you, and that is knowledge.
Yeah.
Never stop pursuing a better version of yourself.
Yeah, no, and you may be asking yourself, how do I become patriotic? Well, that's a good question, Josh. I'm glad you asked me. How about participating in your civic duties, right? Get out and vote. Get a job and pay your taxes. Pay your fair share. Contribute to the economy. Contribute to these programs that, because there are people out there that are doing these programs. Contribute to help your fellow Americans. Support local businesses. Participate in the biggest thing is participate in jury duty. And then you say, is that it? No, that's not it. How about honoring the history and symbols of America? Honor the flag. Historical national holidays. Honor your veterans. Support your military. Maintain your surrounding. And America's not perfect. Acknowledge our flaws and work to improve it. And how do you do that? Contact your local representatives. As much as they forget, they represent us. They're not there for themselves. They're not there for their donors. They are there to represent the American people. And if you don't like what's going on in the country and you don't like the direction the country's headed, contact. We say this in every episode too, by the way, Josh. Flood the phones with messages. Flood their inboxes with emails.
Civic engagement. If you don't like what they're doing and they're not listening to you, vote them out.
And yeah. Go ahead, Josh. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Change the circumstances. We see it with Brandon Herrera. He's running again for Congress, by the way. But he almost won with like a tenth of the budget of, I think the guy's name is Gonzalez that he's running against. He doesn't like what he's doing. So guess what? He's stepping up, going and campaigning against him. I'm not saying everybody has to campaign against the person that's the incumbent. That's a little unrealistic for a lot of people. But go out there and vote. If you don't like what this person's doing, and he's a little bit better of an option, you might have a little more disagreement, but the other guy, the incumbent, is continually voting against what he originally promised. Vote for the new guy. Then if that new guy gets elected, he does the same thing, vote in a different person. Make it a revolving door until that area is properly represented. Stop playing the woe is me and woe is this country because this person keeps getting in. Vote them out. Stop voting them in. And yes, you only have one vote, but how can you change that? Go out and have conversations with people. Respectful conversations, respectful debates. Stop this anger, hate mongering, debating, and calling people names just to call them names and then going out there and creating violence that's not needed. That's not how you help either side. Because I can tell you, any rational person, if you come up to them unrationally or irrationally about a subject, they're going to discredit you and discredit your cause based off of that.
Yeah, you make your side seem like they're delusional.
Mm-hmm.
We shouldn't be committing acts of violence against the other side of the aisle. That should not be a thing. We should not have to be a public speaker and have to hire the U.S. military to secure us and make sure we don't get assassinated when we're out in public talking. You shouldn't have to walk through cities and not wear a Trump hat or not wear a Biden hat because you're worried about being attacked. It's not. And again, most of the reason for this is the temperature from the politicians. But us as Americans, we have the freedom to think what we want. Why are we allowing them to brainwash you and make you act in these ways? And it all comes back to the basic foundation. Treat your neighbors the way you want to be treated. We learned that in elementary school. Josh, I treat you the same way I want you to treat me, and vice versa. Because you don't think we should be putting Christmas decorations up in November, and my wife forced me to, doesn't mean that you have to come over here and commit act of violence on me.
No, I'm just going to take them down and put the Indians and Pilgrims up for you.
That's fine.
I'm just going to correct your scenery.
That's fine. But the point I'm trying to make is, because you voted for Donald Trump or you voted for Joe Biden doesn't mean you become a target of mine.
No. It's un-American. You want to talk about being truly, we talk about, I'm glad we led this way. You remember the No Kings rally? You know how it was pro-American?
Yes.
But the Democrats just voted in a king adjacent?
Yes, I understand that.
Like, you propose to be the party of the American people, and you support democracy, even quote unquote. We are not a democracy. Once again, we are a constitutional republic. But you say no kings, but yet you want socialism, which makes the government king adjacent. Because essentially, in socialist societies, the executor or the executive branch can do whatever the frick they want with no safeguards. That's what democratic socialism is. You want no kings, but you're going to vote in a king adjacent. Stop being hypocritical. You can't play one card and then come over here and play a different card and say, oh, they're not the same, when they are historically.
Yeah, no, you hit the
just
you hit
the
nail on the
right there.
You hit the nail on the head with that one. Another thing too is like, we are a free country. We should not be being assassinated based off reviews. This isn't a communist country.
Mm-mm.
We're not North Korea. We're not China. We're not Russia. You don't be persecuted because of what you think of what you have to say. You might have different opinion on certain things than I do, and that's okay. We can agree to. Why can't in America we agree to disagree and turn the other way? No, instead, a young man dies in front of 3,000 college students on national television in front of his children. Tragically shot in the neck.
Donald Trump. People are making fun of it, setting up like a Halloween costume for it. Ridiculous.
Donald Trump shot in the air on national television at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. Why do people who express their opinions based off of politics have to be concerned about their well-being, about being targeted by the other side? And I'll tell you right now, the Democrats aren't the ones worrying about being targeted. It's the Republicans. You don't see AOC and Bernie Sanders walking around with the U.S. military securing them. You don't. And then you see, you got Crowder. He's now doing public appearances again. But what's different this time? He's got bulletproof glass in front of him. Why? Because of his thoughts. And he knows that the Democrat Party doesn't like him because of his thoughts and his views, and they want to hurt him.
It's not even just, I'm not even going to say it's just the Democrat Party.
But it's not that side, but we see it more from the Democrats to the Republicans. The acts of violence toward, and again, it happens both ways.
Even if you don't identify as a Democrat, if you identify as an independent, it doesn't matter across the board. I don't care if it's Republican versus Democrat. I don't care if it's Democrat to independent. I don't care if it's Democrat to Republican. I don't care if it's Republican to independent. Across the board, political violence in America is un-American. We need to be able to sit down and have public debates respectfully. Stop this notion that because somebody else disagrees with you that, oh, I have to be mean now. I don't care. I don't like half the Trump. I don't agree with some of the stuff Trump says, but that's where I'm at. Now, I might have voted for Trump because I didn't like Kamala. Kamala couldn't articulate her policies. That's American patriotism at its finest. And then we also talk about No Kings rally. How did Kamala become the DNC winner without going through an election process. So you claim no kings, but yet you give two pieces of evidence of king adjacent work. So I don't want to hear no kings when you're doing the same thing on the other side. Kamala didn't go through the primary process. Kamala was just, boom, we woke up one day and she's the DNC nominee. No Democrat voted for her in a DNC primary. There wasn't other people up there with her because she would have lost to Ben Shapiro if he ran.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And he would have been a much better candidate than her. She couldn't articulate her policies. She wanted to give $25,000 out to new homeowners, extra on top of what you get already. Where was that money going to come from? She didn't articulate that. She only talked about where she came from and laughed weird. That's great. I'm glad I know where you came from, but what are you going to do? How do you plan on doing it? How is it going to affect my life? Where's the financials? There was none. It was just, I'm going to give you this, I'm going to give you that, I'm going to give you this, I'm going to give you that. I don't care about free stuff. Where's the money going to come from for that? Guarantee you I can tell you where it was going to come from. The American taxpayer.
Yeah, it's insane.
You have to support what you believe and then do the reading for it. It's all part of being American and patriotic. Do the work for yourself, and you will learn a new sense of accomplishment and a new respect for the way we were founded. Participate in this collective experiment. We were called the new experiment by the French because we are. There is no government setup that is like ours. You can talk about France, you can talk about Poland, you can talk about Germany, you can talk about Australia. None of them. They are democracies. We are not.
Yeah.
Participate in it. This is the only country where we have the power to change the future of where this country is going to go forward and make it better for the future generation. Yeah, we're the generation of now, but we are no longer the generation of the future. The generation of the future is people under 10 years old. Make it better for them.
Yeah. No, I think that was a good closing thought. Yeah. Josh is a little heated, but it's okay, Josh. I see the steam coming off your head.
I mean, tell me I'm wrong though.
No, you're
Was
not
anything
wrong.
in my statements wrong?
No, and I think we both touched on almost the same thing, and it's important that we get back to where we were in the past, and we're moving far off track, and we need to kind of veer back on course here, So that's what I think we do. Yeah. So anything else to add, Josh, before we close it up?
No, just be civically engaged. If that's something we don't talk about every time on this podcast, is be civically engaged and do it in a civil manner.
Yeah, I agree. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning into episode 8 of Overcaffeinated and Dysfunctional. Make sure to give us a follow on Spotify, YouTube, X, and TikTok. Click the link tree in the description for all the links for social media. Be sure to like and subscribe for all future episodes. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.